Hello, Algebra Scholars. Last section, 3.6, we learned the slope-intercept equation of the line, which we're now familiar with as being y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope of the line and b is the y-intercept of the line. In this section, we learn a brand new way to write the equation of a line. It's called the point-slope form, and it is as follows. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. M is still the slope of the line, not surprisingly, and one point that the line passes through is the point x sub 1, y sub 1. It could be any point, unlike our equation from 3.6, where the point that we know has to be the y-intercept. The point that the point-slope line passes through can be any point on the graph. For example, if we have the equation y minus 2 equals 1/2 times x minus 4, we know that the slope of this line, m, is, that's right, 1/2, and a random point, not necessarily the y-intercept, that the line passes through is the point x sub 1, y sub 1. Well, here's x sub 1 in the equation, and in our equation, in this problem, it's 4, and y sub 1 is what comes after the minus sign, is 2. So we know that this line, which is in point-slope form, has a slope of 1/2 and must pass through the point 4, 2. Well, what if we don't have minus signs in our equation? What if we have y plus 3 equals negative 1/4 times x minus 4? Well, the slope, very easy, negative 1/4, it's just the coefficient always sitting out right here. What's the point, though, that our line passes through? Let's be careful. In the formula up above here, these are always minus signs. So x1 and y1 are whatever come after the minus sign. So for x sub 1, that's easy. X sub 1 is just going to be positive 4. But what comes after the minus sign here? There is no minus sign. But remember, a positive sign is really just two minus signs in a row. So the y sub 1 must be negative 3. So this line has a slope of negative 1/4, and it passes through the point positive 4, negative 3. In this example, I'd like you to write a point-slope equation of each of the following 4 lines, where I give you the slope and I give you some point that the line passes through. Two things are important here. We have to read the instructions very carefully in this section. The instructions will always tell us what form our final answer should be in. So our final answer should be in point-slope form. What's given to us in the problem tells us where to start the problem. This particular example is easy because we're given a point and a slope, and we're asked for point-slope form. So where we start and where we end will be the same. In this first example, let me write down the point-slope equation. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And all I have to do is plug in the values. It's plugging, but there's no chugging. So y sub 1 is this value here, and x sub 1 is this value here. So y minus 4 equals m, which is 2, times x minus x sub 1, which is 3. And that's as easy as it gets. Try the next example. Y minus y1, and y1 is 6, equals negative 1/3 times x minus x1. Now we have to be careful here. It's x minus x1, but since x is negative, we have these two negatives in a row. So this problem requires one additional step. We're going to get rid of our double signs, and instead of x minus negative 2, we're going to write x plus 2. Down here, example C, we have y minus negative 10 equals 4/3 times x minus 7. So once again, we have an additional step getting rid of the double signs. Y plus 10 equals 4/3 times x minus 7. And in the last example, y minus negative 9 equals negative 5 times x minus negative 8. Two sets of double signs to get rid of here. Y plus 9 equals negative 5 times x plus 8. In this next example, what you're given is exactly the same as what you were given in the previous example, but let's take a look at the instructions. You're now asked to write a slope-intercept equation. And remember, a slope-intercept equation is a y equals mx plus b equation. But remember this, the instructions tell us where to finish the problem. Okay? It's the given that tells us where to start the problem. So even though we're asked for a y equals mx plus b equation, we're not going to start with a y equals mx plus b equation. Since we're given a point and a slope, here's a point, here's a slope, we're going to start with the point-slope equation. So y minus y1 is 4, equals m times x minus x1. And unlike the previous example where we were done at this point, we have to transform this point-slope equation into a slope-intercept equation. And to do that, to make it look like y equals mx plus b, we have to distribute the slope through the parentheses, and then we have to add 4 to both sides to get y equals negative 3x plus 19. And there we have a slope-intercept equation. But notice that we started with a point-slope equation. We'll do the same thing in example B. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Let's get rid of the double signs first. So this is x plus 6. Now we'll distribute the parentheses through the parentheses. So 2/3 x plus, what's 2/3 times 6? 12 over 3 reduces to 4. We'll add 1 to both sides, and we will get y equals 2/3 x plus 5. So where you start and where you end are not the same place. In this problem, we started with a point and a slope, so we started with the point-slope equation, but since the instructions told us to write a slope-intercept equation, we finished with a slope-intercept equation. So pay attention to the given and pay attention to the instructions. All right, algebra scholars, this next example is even harder yet. So let's look at the instructions. It says write a slope-intercept equation. So what does that tell us? That tells us our final answer is going to be y equals mx plus b of the line passing through the points negative 3, 1, and 3, 5. So look at what we're given. We're given 2 points. So we can't start with the point-slope equation. We can't start with the slope-intercept equation. What's the only thing we can do if we have 2 points? Well, I hope you're all out there answering find the slope, because if you did, you're right. So all we can do right now is find the slope of the line passing through these points. So let's do that. 5 minus 1 over 3 minus negative 3. 5 minus 1 is 4, 3 plus 3 is 6. Fraction reduces to 2/3. So let's take a look what we have now. Now we actually have a slope, and we have 2 points. So we can now use the point-slope equation. Which point should we pick? First one, second one, first one, second one. What do you think? Doesn't matter. I'll pick the second one, and I will use the point-slope equation. So y minus y1 equals m, we just found m, times x minus x1. Let's clean it up. Y minus 5 equals 2/3 x minus 6/3, which is 2. Add 5 to both sides, and we get y equals 2/3 x plus 3, which is in fact in slope-intercept form, which is what we were asked for. All right, let's take it back real quick to where we started the lesson here. If I give you the equation of a line in point-slope form, you should be able to tell me the slope of the line and one point that lies on the line. So for the first line, the slope, very easy. Remember, it's always the value of m in front of the parentheses here. So the slope is 2/3. And a point that the line passes through has to be x sub 1, y sub 1. And remember, those are the numbers that come after the minus signs. So the number after the minus sign for the x value is 6. And the number that comes after the minus sign here, there is no minus sign, but remember, a plus sign is just two negatives. So it's 6, -5. The next example, the slope is 1/2. And the point is, tell me, good, -4, +3. All right, algebra scholars, let's polish this lesson off then. Here in this last example, I want you to graph these two lines, and notice that they're both written in point-slope form. What I don't want you to do is to put them into slope-intercept form. It's much easier to graph a line if it's already in point-slope form, because we know what the slope of the line is, and we know a point that it passes through. +3, -2. So to graph this line that's in red, let's switch over to red. Let's plot the point 3, -2 right here, and we will use the slope of 1/4 to find a second point. So up 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right 4, or of course down 1 and to the left 4. And we can graph the line in red. We can do the same with the line in blue. The slope is -3, and a point that it passes through is -1, +4. So we will plot the point first. -1, +4 is here. And our slope is -3, but remember that just means -3 over +1. So down 3 and to the right 1, or we could go up 3 and to the left 1. And there's our blue line. And that's all there is for the point-slope equation. Good luck.